Hello, welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast, joined by our chief sports writer, Ryder, who's down at Anfield, and he's just witnessed what was a very entertaining game. Newcastle drew 1-1 with Liverpool grabbing a late equaliser right at the death through Joe Willock. Lee, so much to talk about in that game. I'm just going to leave it up to you to start. Where do you begin?
Yeah, well, obviously Newcastle, the weathered the storm throughout the whole game. I mean, Liverpool had 22 shots, and really, to still be in the game going into stoppage time was an achievement in itself. But you've got to give them credit because they did stay in the game, and sometimes that coming to places like this, that's important. And realistically, now at that point, it was whether they could conjure something up. And for me, Callum Wilson's very unfortunate. It looked like he was trying to get his arm out the way. At that point, you go from elation to complete devastation up there in the stand, and I'm sure it was the same for the fans back home. But Newcastle kept going. That was the key thing about it. They continued to search for the equaliser in added time, and Joe Willock pops up with yet another vital goal, and Newcastle emerge here with a point, which is fantastic.
We'll get right to the end of that game then. You mentioned Callum Wilson's goal disallowed after a VAR check. Handball. I mean, his hand was pretty much as it could be into his body. Really harsh. The letter of the law says it has to be disallowed. But I think what most Newcastle United fans are pointing out that there was a shove in the back in the build-up to that, which seemingly went unpunished. I mean, it was just a bizarre decision for many people.
Yeah, it was. It was in keeping though with one of those games where you're going to need some type of luck to stay in there, and that's exactly what they got in the end. Newcastle's 3-team coaches could just go behind me here, so I don't know if there's any noise coming from that. But yeah, it was one of them games where you just needed to stay in there and keep your composure. And Newcastle, they managed that. I mean, Steve Bruce in the press conference there was disappointed that Newcastle didn't win the game. That's the way he looked at it. So a very strange one. It reminded me a little bit of that Everton game last season when Newcastle picked up a point on the other side of Stanley Park, deep into stoppage time. But today, for me, they deserve the point for the fact they kept going and the fact they stayed in the game.
Joe Willock ended up getting the equaliser. A good bit of play by Newcastle. Yes, it took a deflection by the time it went in, but for him to be out of the side after performing so well recently, the way he keeps reacting, Steve Bruce has some really tough decisions to make when it comes to Joe Willock.
Well, he does. I mean, Sean Longstaff for me played well. I know some people may disagree because he lost the ball a couple of times, but I think he made about 5 good clean tackles in there, a couple of interceptions, and thankfully, his performance was one of the ones that gave them the foundation to go on and get the game. But Joe Willock's just got that golden touch at the minute, and it's the fact he's coming off the bench is working. So it's great for him.
Definitely. I mean, what was Steve Bruce like in the press conference? He said there he felt maybe Newcastle should have won. I know in your instant reaction video, you said it felt like a win. Was that the kind of the mood Steve Bruce was in as well?
Yeah, I mean, well, he was actually, as I said, disappointed that he didn't win the game. So he was looking at it from a slightly different point of view. He'll now, move into the next game against Arsenal, and he'll probably think Newcastle will be safe if they win that one. For me, they're safe already. So it's one of those days where they've got something from this. It's a bonus point, and you just wouldn't believe that they've come from that Brighton game where they looked completely gone to then put together a 4-game unbeaten run and push themselves away from the relegation zone.
How fortunate do you think they were that Liverpool were wasteful in front of goal? I mean, to still be in it so late on and then to get back, to level scores. Was it a case that Liverpool were a bit wasteful in front of goal as well?
Yeah, I mean, there was several times I think I put on Twitter that Dubravka's just saved from Mane again, which was that was the vital part of it. He was man of the match for me. And I think really, going on into the next sort of game, they've got to start taking a few of their own chances in the first half rather than just banking on the luck in front of goal and other teams wasting chances.
And just a quick mention for some other players which rated high in your player ratings, Lee. You had Paul Dummett. He got a good mark, and obviously you've mentioned Martin Dubravka there, but you were impressed with Dummett today.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's now coming to that part of his career where the best thing for him is to play in the centre of a 5-man defence. That's what he's been doing, and hopefully, that's the future for him in his latter years. I mean, he is playing for a contract, and he did himself no harm whatsoever today with a vital performance. I think that moment where Murphy lost the ball on the touchline, and then Dummett gets back and prevents Salah from having a chance in the first half. That was a vital moment. There's so many of them.
Most so. And Alan St. Maximin as well had another good game today. Liverpool's tactics seem to be to try and kick him into next week, but he loves that, doesn't he? He likes that challenge, and he was top class today.
Yeah, and I think a few people have mentioned it already that it's now going to be the summer challenges if Newcastle can hold on to him. I don't want to sound negative, but if you're playing that well, people are going to take notice. And Steve Bruce, I think, touched on it himself in his press conference the other day that that is going to be the challenge they're going to have. There'll be top teams that like the look of him. He's probably turned the season on its head for Newcastle in terms of pushing them away from danger. And we've got 5 games left to try and add to it, and he's going to be a key part of that.
A few people in the comments are asking about the decision to switch John Joe Shelvey into that 5-man defence when Willock came on. I don't know what you felt. I felt when that decision was made, Lee, the little threat Newcastle had going forward was nullified until the final 5 minutes. I don't know what your take on that decision was.
On what decision was that, sorry?
Shelvey dropping into defence when...
Shelvey dropping into defence, yeah, I think it's one where they just took a bit of a gamble, really, but ultimately, he's a ball-playing sort of defensive player in that situation, and maybe that's what they were looking for, him to pick out someone by putting a ball over the top, which he obviously did in the first half for Sean Longstaff, who had a good chance. But overall, I think you can't really argue with anything that the bench done today. I think they got all their decisions completely right.
And do you think this is it now? Do you think Newcastle are safe and they can start preparing for next season?
I think they're safe, yeah. But I would be disappointed if they didn't pick up another point. In the last 5 games, I mean, I still think they're capable of getting another couple of wins from the games available. And, you look at even Leicester away, that's going to be an opportunity for them because, Leicester are going to have so many games coming up. Arsenal at home is more than winnable. You watched Arsenal last night. They were terrible. A real chance for them in that fixture as well. So there's so many opportunities for them to add to what they've got. And that's without bringing the Sheffield United and Fulham games into the equation. I mean, Fulham must have been devastated watching that today. And it just means they've got a mountain to climb now in the last few games.
Most certainly. And just finally then, what's it like being down at Anfield? We know what it's like when it's full, but it must be a bit of it just must be a bit of a bizarre experience to be in a stadium like that with no fans. Yeah,
it was quite strange, quite emotional before the game with You'll Never Walk Alone playing in front of nobody. You know what I mean? It's a very, whatever people say about it, it's a very emotional ground, Anfield. And today Newcastle, when they were, I think a few seasons ago, there was a similar game where Liverpool completely dominated, and they ended up winning 4-0. They were dominating the game at 1-0, and they went on to absolutely pull off a complete rout for Newcastle. And today, without the Anfield faithful there, it kept Newcastle in the game. I mean, obviously Newcastle would have been backed by their own fans, but funnily enough, I'm just going past the away end now, but it's one of them where today the away support would have loved that moment to see Willock equalise after what they would have seen as a very unjustified decision.
Yeah, 100%. It would have been great to have that away end full like it was last season when Willems scored, didn't he? And they absolutely loved that. Well, Lee, we'll let you get off. I know you've got a long journey back to Tyneside, so safe travels back. Thanks for joining us as per usual.
Cheers, thanks.
So there was Lee down at Anfield, and you can head over to chroniclelive.co.uk to catch up with Lee's match report, player ratings. We've got Kieran Kelly's 5 things. Great video as well from where you can see Jamal Lascelles' reaction to that VAR disallowed goal from Callum Wilson. Plenty of that content as well on our website. Thank you very much for tuning in.